we're all adults here.
Well, everybody, yeah, everybody, yeah. Take it up to the top, may the party never stop. Make it loud, make it real, let them know that we're here. Well, everybody, yeah, everybody, yeah. Throw your hands in the air, and if you do, and if you dare, turn it up, shake it down, and the world will spin another round.
Hi. Hello. I hope everyone can hear me.
Wow.
Hello, hello.
So, and thank you everyone in chat already for coming along on time and being here for our first ever show. I'm really excited, as you can probably tell. So if I get all like giggly in the background, don't mind me. I'm here with my gorgeous co-hosts, Ms. Skelly
Hello, hello.
and the lovely Meg.
Hi.
And we've got some great stuff lined up for you this evening. So we kind of have played around with it. It's a little M-termish. It's a little Let's Get Critical. It's somewhere in the middle. It's a little lighthearted. We are, of course, going to do some interesting debate stuff. We're going to do some current affairs. We're going to do some DIY. So if you've got any relationship advice, anything like that, then we would love to hear from you. Submit it in chat if you're feeling brave enough. Or we are going to work on getting a Google Sheet or a Reddit. So I think Dom is going to give us the Reddit link at some point. So, you know, you can obviously submit anonymously to that. Or again, if you're feeling brave, you can put stuff in there. And we will bring the best ones to your attention. But for tonight, we have picked some juicy morsels from various Reddits. And we will be discussing those and giving our take on them a bit later in Dear War. And at the end, just because we're kind of, well, one of us is a familiar face, but the other two of us probably are less so. Just to help you get to know us a bit, we have a little section called Ask War, and that's going to be a real kind of quick fire minute. Tonight, Meg is the willing victim. They're either or questions. Yes, exactly. I'm going to be with my high-tech box of questions here, picking out as many as Meg can answer in the minute. Skelly's going to be the timekeeper. And again, though, if you want to submit a couple of questions for Meg in chat, that is also possible, and Skelly will keep an eye on that. And if they are reasonable and not too invasive, or she might answer them. You might get asked. So just a warning, don't make it too intrusive. And they might actually get asked to Meg and hopefully get some answers. We've been going for the either or would you rather kind of question style. So that they really are. Who's going to set Nessa on Dom? What? Sorry, just looking at chat and I've already lost the plot. So our first section of tonight is Dear War, and we have a couple of things lined up for you. We've got a couple of topics to discuss. Our first topic of the evening, really. This one, I suppose, keeps coming around and around. They've covered it on MTAM in various forms, I suppose, and we thought we'd give our 2 cents on the topic and maybe take a different view on it. But it's about sexism. Yay! Really around sort of sexism, gaming and Twitch. You'll have seen there's a lot of stuff that goes around. There's a lot of positive and negative feedback around female streamers and generally what female streamers bring to gaming and to Twitch platforms and things like that. So we want to give a bit of an insight into it and give our take on it. Maybe Skelly, you could kick things off for us because you posted a very interesting article. Maybe you could give us a bit of a summary on what that article was about.
Yeah, actually, hold on. Let me copy that real quick and see if I can post it in chat. But essentially, it was a reporter went to TwitchCon last year in 2019 and was interviewing some women about their experiences on Twitch. And as somebody who I've been streaming for almost 3 years now, it'll be 3 years the beginning of July, so in about a month. Um, and so it was just something that really resonated with me, uh, because it's definitely it's very obviously been a thing that happens when I stream is I can see the ways that people interact with me are very different from the ways that I see people interacting with my male friends who stream. And so hold on, let me just put this in chat real quick so people can see. There we go. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the male streamers who are partnered and actually like really making money off of Twitch, they're I think it's like 85% males, something ridiculous like that. And most of the people who, make a decent amount of money from streaming on Twitch are males and are not females, which is so counterintuitive to the whole argument of like, oh, well, female streamers and titty streamers are stealing our viewers. And like I think that a lot of it ends up being that it's easier for female streamers to initially get follows, but it's more difficult for them to build a community that comes back because there will be people who follow like, oh, well, this is just a pretty girl, so sure, I'll follow. But those people don't hang out. Those people aren't what's going to get you to the partner level if that's something you're trying to do. And it's very, very sexist. And I'll let somebody else talk now.
I mean, Meg, you've kind of you've got quite a big Twitter kind of following and things like that, and I
Yeah,
think you've come across some of this recently.
I was gonna say like I'm not a Twitch streamer, but I have since about November grown my Twitter from like 100 people to almost 11,000 people now, and I get a lot of I get the same comments that like, oh well, you have a lot of followers because you have big boobs or something like that. But if you follow me, you'll see I never post anything remotely. I guess in terms like I don't even want to use the word risque because I think that like if women want to post that they absolutely can, but like my Twitter is pretty modest. It's just really like jokes and random stuff. But I do feel a little bit like I've peaked out and I've had people like other men encourage me, well, you should change your Avi to boobs and you'd have 20,000 followers. Or like I've had people literally say that to me all the time. And that's always their tips on how to grow my followers. And I'm pretty sure no men have ever been told to like show their pecs to get past that 10,000 follower mark. And I do agree, like people may come for your looks, but it doesn't keep the interactions up. It doesn't make them stay just because they came because you were pretty.
No, I think that there's the piece there around, which I think is true across all things. If your content is good, that's what people stay for generally. You know, if you are interactive and you are engaging and you are charismatic as a person, then it becomes not just about you as with the pretty eyes and the boobs and the and all the rest of it. So I think that's the big. Amy, I think posted an article and I've it's already gone off chat's bubbling today. But they look quite interesting about PayPal and things. About they did a study around women being less likely to get paid than men from streaming things. That looked quite interesting. I'll have to go back and have a read of that. But no, one thing that Dom and I were discussing the other day actually was how different games might be if games were written sort of by women for women. We now have sort of sex shops who have been set up by women for women. We have porn that's now directed by women for women. Is there a market within the gaming community for games designed by women for women? And what would those look like and how will they feel? And that was kind of one of the questions that I had the other day because I came across an interesting picture of what a costume on a male might look like if it was in any way similar to one that a female might be required to, or is designed in the current computer game community. I don't know whether Dom can post that in Discord, perhaps, if people want to have a look. But it was a very interesting picture, but perhaps a bit too risque for us to put up here on Twitch. But it was kind of like a lot of stuff revealed, let's put it that way.
I mean, the important things are covered up. I don't feel like it's TOS.
Oh, it was, but it was kind of bandages around some of the significant areas. There
But
was
I mean,
nothing left to the imagination, but
like you're saying though, like they do the exact same thing to women, and that's fine.
I
But
know.
if it's men,
But this is what I'm saying. You know, would do we think that equal objectification is a good thing, or do we think that if we were designing games for women, what do you think that would feel like? What would it look like? I mean, Skelly, what kind of thing would you like to play if it was something? What would you design?
um, I think probably more on the like equal objectification spectrum, simply because like people play games for different reasons. They play games in different ways. And, if you are the type of person who wants that revealing, sexy clothing, then, you do you. It's fine. But it needs to be done at the same level. Like, I would love to see a game where there are two outfits that have the same stats, but one is more revealing and one is like actual armor.
Hmm.
And then that way people can choose which one they would like.
Yeah, because I I agree with you because I think there is a piece where I don't want to remove the sexy, and I think a lot of guys and girls like playing the other sex in games and things like that for the costumes and the looks and the things that you can customize that come along with those types of characters. Um, and I think that's another level of engagement to allow people to kind of play around with that. But what about you, Meg? How do you think we need to change, or what do you think the end goal could be or should be?
I like Skelly's idea. I really hadn't thought about that because, like, I think in my mind, I'm not a huge gamer, but if I think about it from like a Marvel movie perspective or whatever, as we've definitely moved more towards functional outfits. If you think about Captain Marvel being the most recent female superhero, she definitely had the most functional outfit, and I don't think that impacted her success at all. But I like Skelly's because it is fun. I would like the option to pick those things for men. I think that would definitely make it more interesting. I don't think we need to go totally the direction of like everyone's gonna be modest and realistic because it's a game. It's supposed to be fun. So I like Skelly's idea.
Yeah, would we go with the wedge boots? Because I know the other day we were talking about the fact that wedge heels seem to be the go-to for any kind of sort of self-respected superhero at the moment. We're not running in stilettos anymore. We're now doing it in wedges.
Did we ever run it? Can
Choose
anybody
flats
run?
alternately.
Is there anyone who can run in stilettos? And if so, how?
It's
Like,
part of your
I don't
superhero
understand.
training, I thought. But yes, no, it is a superpower. There you go, Tosley. It's not one that I have. I'll put that out.
I mean, for cosplay, I like it because I'm only 5'2", so I appreciate the Wonder Woman wedges when I cosplay Wonder Woman. But if I was actually going to be like defending the planet, I think I'd go with flats.
Yeah, I mean stilettos they do make a better handy weapon than wedges. I'll put that out there.
That's
They
fair.
when we got taught self defense, it was literally just scrape your stiletto heel down your attacker's shin. That is how you do it, and then stamp on their foot. Just putting that out there. They're a handy weapon.
It's an extra weapon. Yeah, I get you.
So, no, I think it's. I'd love to see more women coming forward. So, I mean, this is one of the sort of the things about STEM subjects anyway, I suppose, and game design is one of those things. Do we see? I mean, this may be one for up, down, left, right, actually, or if anyone in chat wants to kind of get in on this. More women developers coming through. Is there a need for us to, is to encourage more women developers? What could we do to encourage more women to get involved in computer game design? Thanks,
Don't
Sophie.
know any
Sorry.
female developers. Like I know a few female animators like that work for Disney, but like it's literally like maybe less than 10% of their animation staff is female. So, and don't know the statistics at all on gaming, how many female video game developers are, but I would guess it's probably even worse than animation. Um, so I think though that it part of it will be a natural improvement. Now that we have more female gamers, there's going to be more women that want to go into video game development, but it's going to be if they believe they can get hired. And so I would hope that like between the correlation with um, as like female superhero movies and things like that and female dominated games have become more popular, they see that like women can bring things to the table. um, but I think there definitely needs to be like one of the major game developers kind of leading the charge on that in order for it to really happen.
This is interesting. Red Sam says most games are designed not with gender in mind, but with the designer's own interest in mind. So I think that's an interesting thing to bear in mind. It's maybe that's just what interests the person who's making the game, and they're not necessarily deliberately being gender blind. They're just not thinking about it from all of those kinds of angles. And I do think that if people start to think maybe less about their own interests and more about what might appeal to the widest audience possible, maybe that's the route to take. I think most sort of commercial entities will try and think about how do we appeal to as many people as possible. And that's, that probably is the most commercially, I would have thought, astute route to take. And I think that's one that's maybe being missed at the moment. I don't know how that
so there are a lot of video game companies here I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. There are a ton of video game companies here in like the Research Triangle Park, and most of the people most of the women I know who work for video game companies end up being cast as community managers or a community representative and not necessarily in the more development roles. And I'm not saying that it never happens, because as people have pointed out in chat, Assassin's Creed has been done by a woman. Little Big Planet was directed by a woman. So it happens, but it's more rare than it should be, and that's something that we should definitely encourage.
It happens, but they're the outliers. The fact that we can name those few games and we're like, oh, but these three things. But like if we were naming men, we could go on all day. So
Exactly.
yeah. No, I mean, in summary, really, I think what we're saying is that there probably is a market for this, and we need to kind of challenge it or think about how we can give confidence to those females who are trying to break into that kind of market, and encourage more of that content. But I think what we're also saying is we bring on the sexy. Let us play with let's play with sexy costumes for the guy characters as well as the girls. Let's not have it just be the domain of the I think that's fair. You're seeing a lot more of that. I think the piece is that once we have equality in objectification, I suppose, is that going to make things better? Or are we just going to give everyone the insecurity issues?
everyone should feel equally bad. I agree.
Equally bad.
We can all hate ourselves equally.
Yeah. When nobody can live up to the ideals, then we'll have won.
We'll all just be crying while playing our video games,
Oh, there you go. Apparently you can mod a lot of games that the male character can have huge wangs. Well, there we go. Which games are these?
Well,
I bet that exists in Skyrim. That's probably a thing in Skyrim. I don't usually mess around with modding games. I usually enjoy playing games as the developers intended them, and while there are some outliers, like there are certain mods that I like adding in Skyrim.
I think Giggle's got a good idea then around maybe doing a bit of a special around female game and try and find games with predominantly female artists, developers. Maybe that's one for a sort of, a couple of one more runs or that kind of thing, maybe, to have a look at.
Like interviewing women who work in gaming, if we could make that happen.
No, that sounds like a really good thing. So maybe that's something we need to take forwards and promote as TBN and as representatives of TBN. So one for the blackboard. Thank you for everybody's input on that. I'm not sure we fixed the world, but we certainly had an interesting discussion about some of the challenges. Um, and I think we kind of recognise that it exists, uh, and the way forwards is equal objectification to resolve. So yay for us. um, our next topic is a bit of a break from the slightly serious topic there, and it's about openness of our sexuality. So this is where the raunchy comes in. No, we're not going to get too raunchy. Twitch TOS.
At me.
Uh,
I don't know what she means when she says we're not going to get too raunchy, but
I know. Speak for yourself, Nessa.
well, yeah, fine.
I'm the one that gets grilled at the end, so it's fine.
Yeah, there's a few little ones in here actually. So yeah, just have to
Oh,
watch
good.
out for those slightly naughtier questions. Um, So the first part really is kind of, do we feel that as females it's easier to be open with our sexuality than it is for guys, and why might that be? And there is a piece then around openness in relationships, you know, how that might lead on to how easy it is to be open in a relationship, and the rise of non-monogamy, or the apparent rise of non-monogamy at the moment. And is it as a result of people being able to be more open and honest in their relationships, obviously both sexes. So take it away, Meg. Would you like to go first on this one, since I targeted Skelly last time? So
it's your
Well,
turn.
we timed that well. Okay. So I mean, I think that we can all agree that it is at this point in time, it's gotten better, but it is easier for women, I think, to be open about their sexuality, in terms of like, I would not necessarily in terms of monogamy or non-monogamy, because I think that like there's definitely a perception that women in non-monogamous relationships, are still a lot of negativity surrounding that. You know, the classic like, you're just, I think like Hester Prynne and Scarlet Letter, like you can't keep it in your pants type of thing. Like that is more non-monogamous relationship is a natural state for a man, and maybe women aren't viewed the same way. But in terms of sexuality itself, I do think it's somewhat easier for women to be out, I guess you would say, about like if you're bisexual or pansexual. But at the same time, that's so over. It's still like, I don't know what the word is, but like, you know, we still view it as like pornographic. Like if I tell someone that I'm bisexual, the immediate reaction is like that, like they want to see me make out with a girl. You know, like there's still a lot of men in that kind of like domain it's not taken seriously, or that I'm just confused, or that I'm just experimenting. So while it is a little bit easier for women, I think that there are obstacles for both men and women in terms of being out about your sexuality, being out about if you're in an open relationship or some type of non-monogamous relationship. So, but I do think on the positive, I think we mentioned this in our like pre-show chat. Like Netflix has had a lot of documentaries lately about non-monogamous relationships. I think it's become more normal, where it used to be a few years ago, all we had was the polygamous people on TLC. That was the only example of non-monogamous relationships that were really in the media. And I think now we're kind of like getting to the point where it's looked at a bit more seriously.
so what?
Yeah.
Yeah, go on, Skelly.
Um, I mean, I think that Kelsey Ann made a good point in chat that for women, it's well, first of all, how do I want to put this? So I don't think it's easier for trans women, but but women, generally speaking, it is easier to be out because our sexualities are so overly fetishized. But there is still, erasure and fetishization. Um, and separately, as far as non-monogamy, open relationships, polyamory, and all of that, um, I I guess the main thing I want to point out with that is that just because somebody is polyamorous or in whatever kind of open relationship that they and their partner have consented to does not mean that there is something wrong or something missing with their foundational or base relationship. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people automatically assume about polyamory. and I'm currently in an open relationship, and that is absolutely not the case at all. And that's something that I really wish people would understand when I tell them that I'm in an open relationship.
No, and I think that's actually true, and I think someone else, Giggles, also mentioned something here which I was going to mention. It's easier for women to be out if they fit the sexualized version of women that are not atypically straight. So I think, you know, when somebody says lesbian, I think there's a piece that there's the fantasy version, and then there's what is stereotyped as kind of the butch leather wearing kind of side of things. And you kind of it's like binary, like people have sort of in their minds they're one or the other, and quite it's just not like that. You know, reality is very different. And I think, yeah, like it's sort of that ease comes if you do fit into that stereotype, because people go, oh yeah, I knew that, or oh yeah, it's obvious. And I'm like, that's an assumption that you've made without any kind of, again, based on somebody's look, right? And I find that quite hard to kind of, you know, when, well, those sort of things when somebody looks at someone, oh, they're camp, so they must be gay. I university, I had a really great friend. He was absolutely heterosexual, but he was seriously camp. And I used to take him like underwear shopping and stuff, and we just used to have an absolute laugh. But the absolute assumption from anybody out there was like, oh, you know, it's great that you've got a gay friend you can go shopping with. I was like, it's not gay. We're just having a laugh because he enjoys it, you know, and it's fun. It doesn't mean, you know, your sexuality is not defined by the way that you act, or in that kind of, you know, in that kind of way. And I find that sort of something that people kind of do like to pigeonhole.
I
But
think
is
that
it
something
easier
that
if you do, you know, if you are camp and gay? It's kind of like, oh, you know, people just somehow think that it connects the dots for them or whatever. Maybe that, I don't know, it's an easier connection for people. What do you think?
I think as well, like people want to like are finally coming to terms with the like that sexuality is a spectrum. It's not like one person that identifies as bi is not the same as another person that identifies as bi necessarily. And I think that non-monogamous relationships, the challenge is being viewed in that same way, that like one person's non-traditional relationship is not the same as another person's non-traditional relationship. And that can be hard for people. Like people think that like if you say, oh, I'm in an open relationship, they think they know what that means. And my version of it might be totally different from someone else's version of it. And in the same way that sexuality is, you know, the bisexuality or pansexuality, people that identify that way are not necessarily the exact same, or have the same exact mirror preferences or anything like that. So I think that that's like a challenge too. The original question was about men, in terms of if they have a harder time with sexuality, but I do think that there is, and I think that like Skelly hit the nail on the head. I'm generalizing about like cisgender men and women. I would say that like transgender people face completely different obstacles and challenges, and I'm not going to speak for that community at all. But in terms of like men who are bisexual or pansexual, I know quite a few friends that feel like, you know, they face challenges in finding partners that are okay with that. And I don't think that women encounter that as much. And that it's not that it doesn't happen. I don't think it's as much as the obstacles that men face when they identify themselves in those buckets.
It's interesting. I mean, I just know from her reading some of the when Dom and I go through the Am I the Arseholes, this maybe goes back to the your point, Skelly, though, about maybe it being a bit more male dominated. It quite often is the other way around. A lot of kind of insecure people kind of saying, "Oh, I've just been told that bisexual, they're going to go and run off with somebody of the opposite sex, and I'm really worried I'm going to lose them." And I'm, you know, it's like when someone says they're bisexual, I do, you know, there's just, it somehow generates this level of insecurity, and I can understand why people don't maybe immediately want to tell people that, you know, they're both, that they like both for whatever reason. But somehow heteroflexible has crept in, this term as well, which I don't mind, but I think it's an interesting one where it's kind of like, well, in the heat of the moment, I probably would. And that that's kind of an interesting one as well, where you kind of like, you've got the bisexuals who are like, well, I do fancy both, and then you've got the people who are like, well, yeah, I like just to experiment, I like to have a bit of fun, and it doesn't, it's kind of, I'm mainly one way, but I'm not adverse to inclusion of, of another person of the same sex.
I also just want to point out in chat, the Red Sam said, I feel like bi women are told they're really straight and bi men are told they're really gay. And that's very
Yeah.
important. Also, like, I identify as pansexual. And the number of times that I have had someone say to me, well, right now you're dating a man, so you don't really like women, is ridiculous. I It's ridiculous. That's all I have to say.
No, I think that's the piece with that. Well, that's the struggle that most bisexuals face. It's kind of like their sexuality is being determined by the relationship they're currently in, and that's just, it's like, well, no, that doesn't determine my relationship any more than my looks determine my sexuality. It's just because I've chosen to date a specific sex this time doesn't mean the next time it may not be a different person or a different gender.
Right. Or I think if you date a man, then you date a woman, and you go back to dating a man, then they're like, oh, well, you figured it out. You realize that men were really the way for you.
I've turned you straight.
Right. You fixed me.
Yeah. No. But yes, I mean, in terms of, I do think generally, you've got a lot more high profile people starting to, coming out as gay. I mean, we had a big celebrity here coming out recently. He was married for years to a woman, and recently came out as gay, and that's caused all sorts of ripples, I suppose. But it's also been incredibly positive, I think generally, for setting an example, as it is when any kind of big name comes out, and the more of this that happens, the better, I think, especially for male. Sorry, there's a big bug that's just flown into the window, but it's just a moth, so I was just slightly it's like, what's that? But no, it's fine. So
And then there are people that
on,
only like redheads, like Dom. What's the word for that?
if that extends to yeah, to I don't know, does it spend to all sexes though, like a little harem of red-headed men and women? I don't know. Yeah, so I think we all accept that probably is easier for females, and there is this piece where because of that fetishization and just generally the sexualization of, I suppose, homosexuality within females.
For cisgendered females, yes.
That is true. Yeah, no, I think for anyone who's trans, it's incredibly difficult. Just generally, I mean, I was talking the other day with Dom. We decided not to do it on MTAM just because it was quite serious. It was a story about a trans woman saying that she had a best friend and hadn't told the best friend initially that she was trans. It came out, I think, a year or two later. They're best friends. They've done everything together, or whatever. And basically, he's kind of ghosted her since. Well, initially, it appeared that everything was okay, and he said, "Oh, you should have told me. I don't know why you didn't. I wish it would have been really supportive." And then, effectively, he's kind of just dropped off the face of the planet and like avoiding her and stuff. And I just, it was one of those ones where I was just like, you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't, because you shouldn't have to say right at the outset that you're trans, but then you run the risk when somebody later finds out that they react in that way, and that's just awful. It's a real, you're stuck in a real rock and a hard place.
If that's the case, then you probably don't want that person as your friend anyway, to be honest. If your friends aren't going to love and support you at your comfort level with that kind of thing, then that's not a friend you want to have anyway.
And I agree, but there is this sort of onus. It's almost as well to kind of say, well, right from the outset, well, this is this is who I was, and this is who I am now, rather than just it's irrelevant. And I think the piece is that at the moment, for until we're more, I suppose, enlightened as a society, Some people don't find it irrelevant, and that's, to your point, Skelly. It's a lot harder for them therefore to be open about their relation, their sexuality, and the background. But yeah, so polyamory and non-monogamy, people moving on open. I think so. I think there's a general piece around an acceptance that in some cases, for whatever reason, and it's not to say the original relationship, as we said, is not healthy, but that maybe one relationship doesn't fulfill everybody's and all needs, and that sometimes, as long as all parties agree and it's consensual, you can go out and find those and get those needs fulfilled elsewhere. Gone are the days, I think, where it's kind of reliance on just one person to fulfill everything, because as we all know, there's no relationship that's perfect all of the time. But what are the thoughts on that? You've both sort of said that you're obviously in reasonably open relationships. How does it work for you, and what's the positives and what are the sort of the pros and the cons?
I don't know about cons, honestly.
Well, there we go.
I mean, if you are in a relationship where both of you, yes, Kelsey, and you already know what I'm gonna say. If you are in a relationship where both of you are openly and honestly being the key,
Yeah.
communicating, and you're doing it effectively, then as long as it's consensual and you're respecting, damn it, Kelsey Ann, and you're respecting each other's boundaries, then there aren't cons,
Yeah.
honestly. If you're being honest, like I can be a very insecure person. It happens, and I don't expect other people to not have insecurities. So as long as you are communicating your insecurities, you're being open and honest with your partner and any other involved parties about it, then I think that it can be relatively, I don't want to say easy, but easier to work through. I'll let Meg talk now.
That's No, there's been a lot written
I
about
just
ethical non-monogamy, so you can just type ethical non-monogamy into Google and it'll give you a million and one resources of how various people think it should be done correctly, or with the best type of communication.
so I think Kelly and I are both millennials, but I'm like an elder millennial. So I think that maybe I have a little bit of a different like experience than she has. But in my mind, I just kept thinking of like that Venn diagram. That's like one circle is like the amount of people I'm attracted to. The other circle is the amount of people who are attracted to me that are okay with an open relationship. And then there's like that tiny little thing in the middle where it's like that's where it works out.
The sweet spot, yeah.
Right. So I think that I think that maybe of my age group, I'm 36. Most men are either in their late 30s or early 40s, and that's not. I think if you're in your 20s, it's probably a concept you grew up with that is more normalized. But if a man is 45, I don't know that they all or the vast majority are okay with that concept. I think they still grew up with that concept of like the strong male husband that is like the monogamous leader of the family. Like, not as much as like obviously 15 years ago, like every bit it gets better and better. But I think maybe like Skelly and I maybe have like a different experience with it, being that like she's younger than me. So I don't know.
No,
Nessa, you're so.
no, I agree with you, Meg. I mean, where I'm older than everybody, so yay. I absolutely agree with you, Meg. There is, for my generation, a level of societal conditioning which was very much and led to a lot of guilt and self-reflection and a whole load of other interesting mental health issues, because I now have an ex-husband because I feel I missed out on certain things when I was younger, and a lot of that now is in terms of my value sets and my sexuality and things like that are maybe more aligned now with the younger generation's view of things. What I have at the moment, what I'm seeking at the moment, is kind of my insecurities mean that maybe I'm not probably going to be ever fully ready for a completely open relationship with multiple partners and those kind of things. but certainly more open to non-monogamy and those kinds of concepts, and certainly very. But what's been ingrained with me, and what I struggle with most of my life, is that those kind of things are not good things that one should want. You've got to, like you say, there's the very sort of family unit, and everything else is a very traditional kind of male female. You got the kids, 2.4 kids, and you live happy ever after, and you stay together for the kids and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I also like
Yes, I
like
know,
what
but I did miss out when I was younger, Giggle, and I'm having amazing experience now because I decided to entirely change my life on the basis of the fact that I didn't want to get to when I was older and think, damn, I didn't make the most of what I had, and I didn't fulfill some of those fantasies that I had, and I didn't grab life by the horns, and it was making me unhappy. I had all of these fantasies and all this other stuff, and I wasn't living that life that I wanted to. So yes, I'm now in my early 40s trying to do it all. So it's never too late. But,
I also want to point out what Oregon Beast said in chat, that it's not necessarily just age, but also where you grew up and what you've experienced there. So I
it's true.
live in the Bible Belt of the South, um, and have for the vast majority of my life. And so there are so many things about my sexuality, about my religion, about my relationships that the majority of the Christian Bible Belt South do not approve of.
Yeah.
And so it's been an interesting experience navigating that.
Yeah, I mean, that's societal conditioning, and if you then don't meet that societal norm, it how does that impact you? And for a long time, obviously, I tried to meet that societal norm, and my mental health suffered as a result of it. There was a lot of guilt, there was a lot of shame, there was a lot of all sorts of things. So there is a piece, I think, where there's a lot of people who are oppressed and repress these kinds of things because of the expectations of the people around them, and they don't want to be seen as different. And that obviously is a big piece about whether or not someone feels that they can be open, and male or female. How are you going to be judged by your peer group?
I think it's funny, like Skelly, you're saying like you grew up in the Bible Belt, and obviously that experience has impacted you. I'm from Ohio, but I used to be Mormon, so I feel like polygamy is not so weird to me. Like Mormons don't openly talk about this, but if you're a Mormon, you have to be okay with polygamy at least after you're dead. You might not practice polygamy now, but you have to be okay with polygamy in heaven. So, after years and years of being told it's totally cool that when I die, my husband gets to have 500 wives, like it's just, I think that like, it's funny how like our religious experiences, while both very conservative, I think kind of like built a different like thought process for me versus what yours says to you. But, obviously Mormons are super conservative. They'll never say that openly. I'm not meaning to offend, but it's the truth. Like, fact check me, that they believe in celestial polygamy. So I think that also, like, I was conditioned for so long to think like I better be okay with my husband having other women someday because I'm gonna have to deal with it. So.
And well, I think even with that, there's a bit of a paradox anyway in Christian. It's like, okay, you might have one wife, you could have, and they may pass on, and you have another wife or husband. What happens when you die? It's like, are you all going to live with those previous partners happy ever after in heaven, or is in one big polygamous family? Hey,
Right.
why are we not endorsing polygamy? Because in heaven, you're going to be like, it's going to be polygamous because you love both of those people probably equally and just as much. You can't just pick one.
Like in the Mormon church, men are allowed they can get married to one woman, say their wife dies, get married to another woman. They can be sealed over and over and over to infinite women. They say the wives keep kicking the bucket. They can keep getting it. Women only get sealed to one man. So even when I'm dead, my husband was allowed to have as many women as he earned. But I just gotta be just me.
So if he dies before you, then he's still, if you find another man, then you still have to go with your first husband. Like up in heaven,
Or you
you're
could get
bound to
special
him.
permission from you get special permission from the church, and usually I'd have to prove my husband was abusive or something
Oh my
to get
gosh.
from my first husband, and then reseal to the new guy. And don't even talk about if you have kids and you've just messed up their sealing because your kids are all sealed to you and your husband, and it's a whole big
Oh
cluster.
wow.
But it's
Yeah.
sure that men continually get to have those extra wives, and that I keep cranking out babies. So
Well, that's the ultimate polygamous relationship. There we go. We had a bit of a lesson on Mormonism there. Uh,
sorry guys.
no, no. I mean, it's interesting. We've all got very different backgrounds and views on this because we kind of all have seemingly ended up in sort of similar views in a lot of ways, but come at it from very different sort of experiences in terms of our past. So um, yeah, it's good, and I think it is definitely more accepted these days, and there's a lot more of it that goes on, and I think that's only a positive thing. I mean, I think there's there's polygamy, and there's polyamory, there's non-monogamy. I think the summary is really, as long as it's done consensually and openly and with honesty and integrity, bring it on. Do you and what suits you. Okay. So now we're going to get into the bit of the fun bit. We're going to do a little bit of advice. So we have some fun Reddit documents, and I am going to, in case anyone's wondering, my little boy, he used to go to a kids class, and they give us a sticker at the end, and I would collect them all and put them on the back of my tablet. Not that I took the tablet, but when he came home, I'd take them off my jumper and of his jumper and stick on the back. So this is a record of all of his little baby classes. But yes, we have some fun questions there. We've got some Dear War. I'm a straight girl, but I'm not turned on by penises, but I'm highly turned on by lactating boobs. What does it mean? So basically, as long as I can remember, I've had some sort of fascination with nice boobs, specifically the ones which are engorged and lactating. Please don't judge me, I feel gross typing this. And seeing milk sucked out of them by men really turns me on, while watching blowjob videos or anything penis related in porn doesn't turn me on. Could I be bi, or am I just straight? Who wants to jump in on some advice for our poor confused lady here?
Um, I think this person needs to do some self-reflection to determine if she really thinks that she is straight. I mean, like the part about not liking blowjob porn. When I watch porn, I don't watch women giving men blowjobs. I don't. And so I don't think that part's necessarily weird, but well, let me rephrase that. None of this is weird. You like what you like, and that's fine. But yeah, exactly. Skip over the blowjobs. I don't want to watch that with my porn. They don't. They're not attractive. But um but I think that this person, it sounds like she needs to do some self-reflection to determine if she really thinks she's straight or if she just doesn't want to not be straight. And I think it brings up, I won't say too much about this part because I know, Meg, you already talked about this a little bit pre-show, but I think it's also important to acknowledge that everybody has different kinks and there is not inherently anything wrong with that, assuming that your kinks, don't hurt other people. Um, yeah, and I will let Meg take over.
I feel like a lot of the sexual stuff is giving Meg's direction today, but that's okay. Um, but I was gonna say, like, I don't think that. I think first, let me start at the beginning. I think she's too concerned about a label. I think that sexuality is a spectrum, as we mentioned. I don't think she needs to say I'm straight, I'm bi. I think it doesn't matter. I think that, and I think that like maybe that's what she's so hung up on is she seems to have maybe a fear of being bisexual or having an attraction to women. And that's my assumption. She didn't come out and say that. I also think you can find certain things attractive, like lactating breasts, and not necessarily um, that doesn't necessarily make you bisexual or even necessarily mean that you want to be in a relationship with a woman or has sex with a woman, whatever it is. So I think that honestly, she is questioning her sexuality. I don't think that you have to think dicks are beautiful in order to be straight either. I think that she's looking at like traditional bisexuality and traditional heterosexuality and saying like, well, I don't fit into one of these, so what's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. You don't have to fit into one of those. And that's what's amazing about today is that we're no longer have to say that like here I'm in this black and white sexual space that this is exactly what I want forever. You don't sign a contract when you come out as bi and say, I will forever be attracted to women as well as men. Like, you could end up marrying a man and being with a man forever or the opposite. So I think that, um, she's very embarrassed. She says she feels disgusting even typing it. And it honestly just makes me sad. I feel like there's a lot of like maybe self hate there of not being okay. Like I think a lot of people have different kinks that are not traditional. We know the traditional ones we see in movies and things all the time. Certain things being over sexualized, but I think she just maybe needs to be okay with that. She doesn't fit into a traditional bucket and try and find peace with that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think from someone who probably, I mean, I'm going back to the point, I do myself heteroflexible. Um, I actually watched a lot of female, well, previously in my checkered history, I've watched a lot of female porn because it's not about, um, it's about putting yourself in that person's position as well in terms of a fantasy. And I think there's a lot of people or a lot of women who do that, who will watch women porn, not because they are, sexually attracted to the women, but because they're imagining themselves in that woman's shoes, for example. And she sort of talks about the guy sucking, the milk out of the breasts and things like that. It may be that she's actually putting herself in that woman's perspective or wishing it was happening to her. And that's why she's getting turned on. And, absolutely, there's a whole piece around sexualization of pregnancies. It's a very natural biological function that we're supposed to kind of feel some kind of gravitas towards. It's the ultimate feminine thing for a lot of people, an expression of femininity. And it may be that is something she's connecting with on a certain level. But I absolutely agree. We're not defined, our sexuality again is not defined by what we look like, what we, like to watch in terms of our porn. There's a million and one reasons why people have various porn preferences, and yes, everyone's got their quirks and their kinks, and I think it's a case of if she wants to experiment, great, but work it out. It doesn't matter, as you say, it's a spectrum, and it may be that she finds she does like it, and
I
maybe
know a
that
lot
she
of straight women are like very, very straight. Like they have no, at least from what they've communicated to me, and I would believe them, no attraction to women, but they don't necessarily find penises to be super attractive. Like there are a lot of straight women who like might like what it does, but they don't necessarily want to look at pictures of it, So
hence the quite often the
I'll
girl on
do.
that
girl, yeah,
out.
yeah. I mean, no one, she compares it to watching blowjob porn, and there's a whole host of other things that don't need to be quite so explicit that could still be quite erotic if she wants to expand her porn collection. But
Yeah, and there are a couple of things that people have said in chat that I also want to draw attention to.
oh, good, Skelly.
That like Sam said, what you find attractive does not equal who you find attractive, which I feel like, especially as somebody who identifies as being pansexual, that's a very important point to make. And then there was a point that Giggle made a little bit earlier, about how like that really resonated with me about how female porn specifically is, generally speaking, a lot more sensual, and that's
Yeah.
something that I definitely look for in a sexual partner. And so that is, I mean, when I personally watch porn, I tend to gravitate toward female centered porn, and it's very often lesbian porn. And I think that that's probably personally one of the main reasons. uh, and see, and that's fine, female gamer. That doesn't have to, if that's not what you're looking for, then that is totally fine. And then there was also a mention of, oh gosh, what was it? Oh, how a couple people said in chat how sexuality is just, it has evolved and is continuing to evolve. And I think that's a really important thing to acknowledge as well, is that, it's something that can and will change most likely. And that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember how old she said she was, but I think she's relatively young, so got a long while to figure it all out. And as you say, evolution, we continue to evolve. That's how we learn. So what's our summary? We want to sort of leave her with one message. What would it be?
You don't need to be ashamed of who you are and what you feel and what you like, first and foremost. And make sure you're being honest with yourself about those things.
Very
Agree.
nicely put, Skelly.
Don't get caught up in labels. I don't think it matters. It maybe to strangers it does, but it shouldn't to you.
Yeah, I think the biggest piece as well is, don't let anybody else dictate who you are. And to Skelly's point, definitely don't feel ashamed of those things. Shame is one of those things we get so caught up with, and it's so hard, going back to the piece before about societal conditioning and things, and it's honestly so detrimental to one's mental health. And you've got to be, as long as you're not hurting anybody, back to your Skelly's point, embrace yourself, be yourself.
If you're not hurting anyone and it is consensual, you guys do you.
Yeah. Okay. Next one. So, I, 20s male, need help breaking up with my girlfriend after she threatened my career. I'm a guy in my late 20s with a moderately successful career creating educational, sometimes funny content on YouTube. I'm hardly famous or anything, but decently well known in some communities. I need advice on what to do about my girlfriend, the situation we're in. We've been dating for 3+ years, we live together. Recently I've decided though it would be better to end the relationship as we have wildly different goals and plans for life. For example, I don't want kids and she is set on them. In my opinion, where this distinction is important because she's especially recently begun talking about how she would like me to propose. However, after I discussed my feelings with her and let her know what I wanted, her behaviour has been getting more and more concerning. Originally, she asked for another try in case I changed my mind, but considering how different I think our plans for life are, I said no. Unfortunately, my girlfriend did not take this very well and has been alternating between giving me the silent treatment, being incredibly needy of my attention, and making threats. My girlfriend has never been involved in helping me create online content before, but she has warned me if we break up, she will go on record and say that I was a terrible boyfriend and toxic in our relationship. I won't lie, I'm terrified. I know several websites where posts from former friends, co-workers or spouses of people in similar circles to me have blown up and caused terrible damage to the person's reputation. Even if this doesn't destroy my career, I don't want to be known in online culture as the guy who was awful to his girlfriend. We're stuck together at the moment due to the pandemic, since we're both working from home. I have no idea, though, how to act around her or how to get out, but all I know is I need to leave this relationship. Help me, please. How do I break up with her without damaging my career after she's threatened to publish lies about me online? So, my understanding...
I feel like Skelly always has to go first.
Oh, I shouldn't
I was gonna say, like, I think in these situations, like, I have a few like mottos in life that I live by. One of those things is that people that are bullies will usually back down when confronted. So I feel like she's definitely trying to like bully and manipulate him. I think that if it were me, I would like give it right back. Like, I guess this is not the answer people want. Is people want me to be like, oh, like be the bigger person. No, like I'm not. If someone was threatening my livelihood and my life, blackmailing me, who a person who I'm living with, like, uh, he's got stuff on her. So just say it, like, we can either go our separate ways and we can be adults and we can, leave this peacefully. And I feel so bad for people trapped with their exes in coronavirus. Like, first of all, but I just think like most people will back down. Like if she said that to him, is it in writing? Does he have a text message? Like, can he show people like, look, like proactively be like, this person is trying to threaten me? Like, most people who are bullies, in most situations in life, when I worked with a bully or like encountered people in public that do things, like the vast majority of the time, those people will always back down. I think that she's trying to see how far she can push him, if she can get him back to do what she wants. At the end of the day, if she does everything she's said, if she does everything she says she's going to do, she's going to look crazy. She might hurt him in the long run. Like, yeah, like it might hurt his career. I'm not really sure what his career is with YouTube. But ultimately, um, if you dump everyone's dirty laundry out on the internet, you're going to look like a crazy asshole. So, um, I think that like he's buying into it. He's living in a place of fear from her, and he doesn't necessarily need to be.
Yeah, I agree with the Meg's take on the manipulation aspect of it. You know, those people who are manipulative and who are emotionally and mentally abusive will say and do anything if they think it will work. And having been in a relationship where my partner has done those things, it can be really difficult to get to a point where you realize that you can, in fact, leave and you can, in fact, be your own person. And as people have been saying in chat, you can get a lawyer, you can get a temporary restraining order and say, you know, if they continue to post these inflammatory things on social media or wherever on the internet, that, you know, they can go to jail, especially if you have, you know, receipts, if it's been in any kind of text form that you can save where they've said, like, if you leave me, I'm gonna post all this shit and I'm gonna ruin your career, then you can very easily get a lawyer.
Yeah, you've got sort of slander and libel laws and things like that that might then come onto your or side, I suppose, in that kind of respect. Um, but yeah, as you say, is it worth the money to spend on a lawyer, or is it just calling her out on her bullshit? You know, is it an empty threat because she's hurting and she's in a situation that she doesn't, want to be in? I'm not saying that that's an excuse for it, but that, she's obviously not taken the news very well, and that's what she's resorting to is effectively a emotional
Not that I'm
manipulation.
defending, not defending Crazy Bones over there, but she is in a test situation where a person that you are obviously still in love with and wanted to marry broke up with you, and now you're stuck living with them. And like they said in the article that like they both work from home, so they're in that apartment
Mm.
all together. That sounds horrible to me. So there's always a chance that at the end of the day, when the quarantine is over, she'll come to her senses a little bit and realize, like, okay, a heightened emotional situation. I'm not really going to do this.
Yeah, and we're still living together, so like in a lot of minds, nothing's changed. We're still sharing everything together. We're still doing it together. It's just there's one bit that isn't working, but can't we work on that? And he's obviously said no, and she's kind of been like, I don't quite know how to handle that. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one where here in the UK, one of the reasons that you can break quarantine, and I don't know what it's like in the States, is to leave an abusive relationship, because there was a lot of concern that people would be staying in abusive relationships, and you've got both people under the same roof 24/7, which is only going to exacerbate, sort of levels of abuse potentially. Whereas most, in a lot of cases, one party might go out during the day to work or something like that, and therefore they wouldn't be together all the time. Um, I, I don't know what the situation is, but I'm pretty sure that if it was that bad, okay, Giggle says it is there here as well, he could leave. He has got that choice then. Um, Whether he can afford to leave is obviously more the question. Um, and I think that there's a piece there where he needs to think about what's best for him in terms of mental health. Is it staying, or is it really just trying to find a way to make it work by leaving and going somewhere else? Because if it's that bad, or he feels it's detrimental to his mental health. But I think you're right. I think calling the bully out on her, on whether she's really going to do it or not is probably the big thing. And I think someone said maybe pre-intercept with people if you've got the records. If she has said things, it's a case of saying to people that might be prone to listen to it. Because if they're really your friends and family, they hopefully would have a bit of a, well, that doesn't sound like him kind of moment or whatever, and they therefore might actually ask for your side of the story. Uh, but I know that doesn't happen in all sorts of cases. But and especially, I suppose, if you've got a YouTube audience that doesn't necessarily know you per se, they may believe rumors about you. Um, so if that kind of stuff does come up, it could affect his livelihood. So I can understand the caution, but I do think, as you say, law is on his side if it's libelous or slander, if he's got a record. Record stuff, yeah. FEMA go inform HR. We rarely get both sides of the story. Yeah, I mean it's a shame that is the case. That rarely get both sides of the story. But he's got an opportunity with a YouTube channel to try and explain to his following if it comes to that. Yeah, I think Sam Zara says because it's a male versus female in these situations. But at the moment she's just made threats. She's not actually done the thing. I suppose that's the big piece. So one sentence or whatever. Let's leave him with one piece of advice. What's the key thing we'd say to him?
Um, I guess that I would say, you know, really assess your situation and decide if it's really as hopeless as it feels. I think he feels very hopeless. So I would say, turn to the people that are there to support you, like your boss or your friends, and ask them for support and kind of exiting because it's an emotionally abusive relationship. It's manipulative. Um, and trust that those people will be there for you, even if it gets a little bit dicey.
Yeah, yeah, I think I agree with that. Yes, get receipts and enact consequences. That's a good
Yeah.
one, Kelsey Ann.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, I think stand up to her, tell her that if it continues, you're going to start logging these incidences and that you find her behaviour unacceptable. And I would say review whether or not you've got the possibility to move out because the longer you're both in there, the worse it's not going to get any healthier. So if you can, move. Thank you. Right. We've got time, I think, for one or two more. Here we go. Found my wife's rabbit vibrator. The fan in our bedroom has a remote for it. Yesterday afternoon, I went looking in my wife's nightstand to find it and stumbled upon her rabbit vibrator. We have a box of our sex toys, which includes a dildo, a few vibrators, nipple clamps, butt plug, and a few other things. I'm not totally sure why she kept this from me. I told her last night that I found it and stressed that I'm not mad at all. In fact, I'm turned on, happy and glad she's masturbating on her own. I encouraged her to do so. At the end of the day, I want her to be happy. I know that if she's happy, then I'll be happy. It ended up being a good thing because last night we used the toy. She used it in front of me while jerking me. Then we had a really good sex session. I'm wondering, has anyone had a similar experience? If so, how did you feel? Did you bring it to their attention? Did it help? How many of you might keep toys hidden from your significant others? And if so, why? So, sex
I
toys
mean,
question.
I will say that I think this guy handled it pretty well. That he he went to her and said, "Hey, I'm not mad, but I found this. Is there a particular reason why you felt like you needed to hide it?" I feel like that's really good communication. And I know that that's like one of the main things that I say all of the time is communication. Um, but also like Giggle said, masturbation can be a very private thing. Uh, if if there's any particular reason why you feel like you don't want to share that with your partner, then that could potentially be valid, but you should also let them know that so that situations like this don't necessarily have to happen.
Meg?
I guess I don't know if everyone's gonna like my guess. Doesn't address this in the article, but they seem kind of like a sexually progressive couple. From what it sounds like, he's pretty understanding and open. Um, I wonder if it's her toy for with someone else, and she doesn't like to share toys with each of her partners, and she keeps one toy for her boyfriend and one toy for her husband. That was that was what my immediate thought was. Um, Only because if they're so
Maybe.
open, he seems to understanding. I don't necessarily know that she was hiding it, but maybe it's just like kept in a separate place to be used with someone else.
That is very valid.
It's very valid. But then they went on to use it as part of a sex session, so I guess
Maybe
she
that's
wasn't
he
that
was
precious
like,
about
okay, I'll
it.
just use it. Like, I don't want to. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying that for sure. I also think that like even if you have a great sex life, people still masturbate, and maybe you just want some things to be private. I think that's totally healthy, and there's nothing wrong with it. I guess I think I told you guys when I read the article, I was kind of like, who cares? Like,
He obviously
yeah,
didn't, so
thing. I
yeah.
don't know that there's like some sort of like weird, terrible truth behind why she kept the rabbit away from him. I think that just she probably just, he seems kind of in her business. So maybe she just wanted some private time.
Yeah, it's interesting they didn't really kind of talk about why she said, like, whether she said it was deliberately hidden or not. It's kind of, there's a bit missing from here, which is kind of, he's obviously addressed it with her, but he's not really said what she said. Like, I would have put,
Right.
like, oh, she said that it was just an like an oversight or for ease of access to, which would have been my kind of guess for, and obviously I think it's come up in chat a few times. I certainly have things a little more to hand than some other things. um but yeah, there's a bit missing where it's like, well, what did she say? Why, that, what was her
Right.
reason? And he's kind of
Yeah.
missed that bit.
You're missing something to me.
She probably just went,
Right.
I just put it
Care.
there because I put it there, and
You got plenty
exactly.
of toys in that box
It's not
over
a big
there.
deal. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is anyone? I don't know whether anyone in chat's had anyone hiding toys, but I know that there was. I think there's the one where I don't know if it's a real or an urban myth, but the dildo of the ex's penis that goes around, which is maybe one you might hide from your current partner, unless if they could guess that maybe that that's Alex Kelly's face. I don't know whether you should bin that one, but it's like your favorite dildo. I don't know.
Why would you keep that?
I don't know.
I don't,
Maybe it just really hits you in the right spot. I don't know.
I mean, sure, yeah, fair.
But you maybe probably wouldn't explain that to your current partner. You might hide it. I don't know. Going back to the shame thing. I don't know.
No, I still would.
What,
I
tell them?
if
Yeah.
that were the case, that like an ex of mine had just like the best penis that hit me in all the right ways, and I had a mold of it that I liked to use, then I would still tell my partner about that. And I would say, like, I know this might seem weird, but like, this is a thing that I have, and like, I have absolutely no attraction to this person anymore. However, this particular aspect of this person is very helpful to me.
That's a
I want to
totally
be a fly
other.
on the wall, Skelly, when you have that conversation.
My
You're
boyfriend is
welcome.
jealous of my ex-boyfriend's penis mold. That's a. What do I do?
Oh dear. No, I mean, yeah, I, I, I think it's fine to have. I mean, it's great that they used to say that they're progressive, and it seems more that he's sort of wondering if anyone else has hidden toys, and I think probably everybody's got toys. Well, not everybody, I was going to say. It's a bit of an overgeneralization. A lot of people have toys, and where they keep them. Sometimes you put them away and you forget about it and accidentally leave them in the bathroom. Accidentally, I think people just have played with stuff and put stuff away, and it probably isn't always in the place you keep it. And why should that be any different when toys are not a big deal in your relationship? So, um, it doesn't really say how long they've been together or anything as well either, I suppose, and that probably it stands to reason maybe if they've not been together that long that he wouldn't have a catalogue of all of their toys anyway. I mean, if they've both brought stuff into the relationship. But no, I don't think it's healthy to keep toys hidden from your significant other. I think that's the piece, is going back to open and honesty. If you want to play with toys, play with toys. So, one last sentence at all for him? It's not really an advice situation. It was more a kind of, did anyone have a similar experience situation? But
I mean, I guess uh good communication on OP's part, that he, went to her and said, like, I'm not mad, but I want to talk about it. But also, maybe don't necessarily read too much into a toy.
yeah. Anything, Meg?
It's fine. That's my one line of advice. It's fine. Got bigger problems.
I think I'm with Meg there. Yeah, it's yeah. Why are we talking in chat about Lego and like stepping on Lego? That's just evil. That's the worst kind of like torture.
We had Shooby Dooby came into chat and we were like, Shooby, tell us about your toys. So he said, sometimes I leave my Legos in the bathtub.
Okay, that's just evil. Yeah. Okay. Oh, Meg has vanished. Okay, I guess we shall wait for Meg to come back. I'm just wondering
I'm
whether.
right
Oh,
here.
there we go.
Right
Brilliant.
here. I had to let the dog in. She's crying.
Oh. Do we have time for one more? As long as we're quick about it, yeah. It's a bit of a meaty one though. Do I leave it for next time?
Could, and we could just do the get to know Meg better section.
We could do the get
We
to
learned
know
a
Meg
lot
better
about Meg
section.
today, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, but all these people, well, most of these people already know a lot about me, so it's only fair.
That's true.
Definitely only fair. So our last section of the day is a bit of a quick fire, and it's to get to know Meg. So we're going to take it in turns. So I'd imagine that it may be me in a couple of weeks, and then it may be Skelly. But it depends on if, because the idea is that we'll have guests in the future as well, and this is something that we plan to use with the guests as well. So should be an interesting one when we're trying to get to know some guests as well. Get as much information out of them as possible in time frame. But as we said before, if you've got anything you wish to add or anything you want to ask Meg desperately, please pop it into chat and we will ask that at the end of our minute and see if we can include a couple of those. As I said before, they are either or type questions or would you rather type questions. But we are, there we go. We're already getting a few coming in, some interesting ones. So I'm going to mix these up. My high tech. I tried looking for a question randomizer, but it wasn't going to work. So instead, I have.
We're old school here.
We're old
Great.
school.
Perfect.
We're retro.
All right, I've got the timer.
Okay. You're going to say go, Skelly.
Okay, we're gonna give her 1 minute
1
to
minute.
answer as many questions as possible.
Okay. Tell me when to go.
Ready? Go.
Nice house or nice car?
Nice car.
Trousers or skirt?
Skirt.
Tennis
Is
or...
that me or someone else?
I think they're meant to be you, but yeah, it's all these, there's some ones where it's like it might depend on whether you're giving or receiving. So, tennis or badminton?
Edmund.
Wax or shave?
Dave.
Bacon or sausage?
Bacon.
Chicken. Hero or villain?
Villain.
Get even or get over it?
Get even.
I think we know that one from earlier. Do without car or internet?
Car.
Fiction or non-fiction?
Nonfiction.
Naughty or nice?
Naughty.
Hugs or kisses?
Kisses.
Snow White or Cinderella?
Snow White.
Time.
Hey.
We did have a couple interesting ones in chat, though. Kelsey Ann would like to know, what is your favorite color?
Green.
Solid. Chinese or Italian from Dom?
Chinese. I don't like pasta.
Oh wow! Well, you could.
I'm
Oh.
offended.
Italian food's more than just pasta.
It's more
That's
for
fair.
you guys though. You could keep all the pasta.
Oh my gosh. Great questions. Thanks, Willow. We had a good fun. What about giving or receiving from Shuby? That isn't actually one of the questions, I think. I don't know this. Giving or receiving,
Um,
Meg?
receiving. I'm too much of a giver. I need to receive more. So
Yeah. If it wasn't green, I was going to riot. What about what about the best color? Favorite color? Is everyone's favorite color now got to be green? BKG. Just saying. If her favorite
your
color.
biscuit. Okay, somebody said cookie or biscuit, but is it
Ooh.
like American biscuit or like because if Nessa says biscuit, that's something different.
Yeah, so female's British, so I'm guessing cookie is a soft kind of biscuit and chewy, and biscuit is a crunchy biscuit.
I want the chewy cookie.
Chewy cookie. Let's try to describe the difference between cookies and biscuit.
I want the less crunchy.
We need, yeah. I don't know. Is both types cookie for Americans? I just
Oh,
that's my
biscuit would be
question.
like I think Sippy talked about this. It's like a baked Skelly, how do you describe a biscuit? You're from
Well,
the
biscuit is
South.
like a savory scone, isn't
Very,
it? Yeah, like
very buttery, kind of
Like
like
a
a
dense
scone.
cake. A
Yeah,
dense layered flaky cake.
that's a biscuit.
but
I
not
thought
not
biscuit was
not
like biscuits and
sweet like a
gravy
cake.
biscuit.
Yes.
Yeah, that kind of biscuit. That would be like a biscuit and
Yeah,
gravy.
it's like a
Soft.
scone biscuit. But yeah, but is a cookie then? Do you cover crunchy biscuits and chewy
A
biscuits?
cookie can be crunchy or chewy,
Right.
yes.
You use it for
Yes.
both. There we go.
People
Savory.
do like a crunchy cookie. I say don't chewy is better.
Yeah, they're gonna be like soft and squidgy in the middle, but that's a cookie. And I don't crunchy biscuits have their place as long as they're smothered in chocolate.
Are you gonna dip them in something?
Fair.
You dip the hard cookie in
Yes.
something.
If you're a tea drinker, you quite often will put a nice crunchy biscuit, and then it gets all soggy, and you can
Like a
Oreos and
biscotti.
milk, that's American.
Sorry, Meg, I missed that.
Said like Oreos and milk, that's very American.
Yes.
Oreo is it? Yeah, well, Oreo is what we would call a biscuit. Yeah, the crunchy. Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Cookie. There we go.
And
Chewy is
for
Our
the
better.
record, you
international
guys,
education for the day.
I love a ginger nut. Hey.
You know, we all had to sign contracts. We wouldn't dye our hair. That was part of the deal.
What's this about the ginger nut? Oh God.
and also for the record, you guys, for the Dear Wa section where we give advice, we do hope that eventually that's going to evolve into something where people who watch the show can write into us and ask us for
Yes.
advice. So I believe Dom has a link for Reddit that you guys could post stuff in if you were of the mind to, or if you want to post it in chat and don't care if it's not anonymous, then you're welcome to do that as well.
Or on Discord, yeah, in the WA channel on Discord. There's all sorts of ways you can get in touch with us. So, but there is a Reddit. So if you want to do it anonymously, check out the Talking Boxes Network subreddit. As far as I'm aware.
And we
It
do
will be
plan
there.
on having guests in future shows. So if I said this in chat earlier, but if anybody here is interested in being a guest on one of our shows, they're going to be bi-weekly. So
Yep.
feel free to DM any one of us and we will work on getting you on one of the shows with us.
But you have to have red
Yes.
hair.
Apparently we only do redheads, so you have to be willing to dye your hair.
If you're redheaded and fun, yeah, must.
Other colours are accepted, but you'll have to wear a wig.
Or you better be really funny.
Or pretty. You know, in terms of this equal objectification, you can also be a bloke. If you've got something, you know, well, we'll probably be bringing various people in of all genders if we think that some of the topics require it. So even if you're of a non-female gender and you want to contribute or you feel you've got something to contribute, then please don't be afraid to also reach out. This isn't going to be just a purely cis female panel all of the time. That is not the intention at all. So But I'm going to say a big thank you. So, Skelly, how do we get in touch with you? When do we see you? How do we find you? What are you
Yes,
doing next?
so you guys can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok, although I almost never post TikToks. But I'll send you great ones at Skelly Twitch. You can follow me on Twitch as SkellyClick803, and I will be streaming again tomorrow at 7 p.m. Yes, 7 p.m. um,
And that's Eastern
yeah,
Standard Time, I assume.
yes, sorry,
Okay.
7 p.m. Eastern Time. Um, I haven't decided what we're playing tomorrow, so we'll see.
I think you've probably
Um,
had enough of 8 hours of Cat Lady, so that's,
Oh my goodness. Playing a roguelike for that long is I'm already not a patient person, and that was so difficult.
yeah, we. I think one more run owes a couple of hours. I think I know that Don was thinking about how we make sure that we give what people subbed to in a different format. So, but yeah, you were great. 3 a.m. is pretty hardcore. And you, Meg.
you can find me on Twitter. It's green-eyed_Meg. So that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. I don't usually stream, but I attend all the streams a lot. So if you are on Talking Boxes Network, you will definitely see me in the chat and we can be friends. So
Yeah, so I'm similar to Meg. You can find me on Twitter, Nessie_AC. And yeah, you'll find me in most of the chats when Talking Boxes is live as much as I can. And I will be back probably in we'll all be back in another couple of weeks. That's the plan. If you've got any feedback as well from tonight, we would love to hear it. So please do, write on the channel or get in touch with us or write to Dom, Talking Boxes, or Sippy or any of the other admins. That would be fantastic. We're going to aim to improve and evolve, as we've talked about, this show over the next few weeks. But we'll hopefully see you soon. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank
So
you.
bye.
Well, everybody